We'll see where our call takes us this evening. But right here and now, you just let yourself rest. A big part of these calls is this continuous returning, this continuous pointing out of who and what we are, or our essential nature and our essential presence. And so no matter what happened during the day or yesterday or what will happen tomorrow, right now, since you're here, what is it like to stop? What is it like to address the very fact of your presence right now? And now, in order to address the very fact of your presence, the very fact of your awareness right now in this moment, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to go anywhere. Nothing needs to happen. And so we begin like this, with the very fact of our basic awareness. The very fact of this basic presence that is alive right in this moment, that is aware. And when you get to that, you don't say any words about it. You can't say any words about it. You can't make any thought about it. It's prior to words, it's prior to thoughts. It's prior to all concepts, all ideas of the past and all ideas of the future. And so just notice where that puts you when you put all concepts aside and go to what you inherently, innately, intrinsically always are. And you go straight to that place. If you go straight to that place without any words or any thoughts about it, then what is it? What's there? It's like if you have a thought, but you take no thought about the thought. What is the thought then? If you have no concept about a thought, and you see it, in the same way, if you take no concept about what you are and you be what you are, what happens? And so we let the tangle of the mind, the tangle of the body, the entanglement of thoughts, of feelings, of sensations, of doubts, of desires, the entanglement of all these things. You let it fall and you find that there was something that was never tangled. And so right here in the beginning, go to that place that is completely untangled, completely unraveled. It can't be tangled. And if we aren't careful, we could wrap it up in another concept and say, well, it's peaceful, it's calm. And we could say the mind is tranquil. We could say there's spaciousness there. We could wrap it up in qualities if we're not careful. What I mean by that is, what this is not a quality, but it is what you are. Can you understand? Can you find? Can you see? Can you look and listen from that place of what you are before all things? So when we talk about these types of things, and I know many of you have read many different things and practiced many different things, but when the traditions point out the nature of your awareness, the essence of your presence, like the Buddhists say, intrinsic awareness, or luminous emptiness. These are nice words, but it's really, really helpful to clarify in the beginning what that is for you, in the most basic sense. You don't need to complicate it any way. what is this presence? Where is it? What happens when you are there? And you go to the root and you look from where it is looking, and you find that it is what has always been looking. Because you could say at one side the main point of a lot of these calls the last year has been pointing this out. And what does it mean when that's pointed out? What does it mean when we see that? And we should all spend some time really, really with this, going there. When you go to that place of pure awareness, what is there? What are you essentially? And to say, what is your essential nature? What is your true nature? In some schools of thought and tradition, the realization of that is a really big thing, and it's the alleviation of suffering and the bringing of peace and contentment and satisfaction with life. So they say that the fruits of this thing, it doesn't sound like any small thing, it sounds like a really wonderful thing that a lot of us would like in our life. Peace, contentment, satisfaction, joy, love, liberation. And many of us who have walked some of those paths, we get confused sometimes. We think that it's somewhere very, very far away at the top of a ladder or at the top of a mountain. But what if just in this moment, it is as simple as the very essence of what you are? And what happens when you go to that essence? And so, in these calls with this topic, I call it the topic of topics, but it's really a non-topic, because there's on one side many things to say about it, and on the other side nothing to say about it. But with these types of meetings, when we have the privilege and fortune and time to meet like this, in some of the ways these meetings are conducted, we sit, and when a question comes, we look at it, or when an expression of this comes, we can talk about it, and we start to learn how to talk about our very direct experience of who and what we are. And usually on these calls I do a lot of talking. I'd love to open the field and see what questions we have to explore, or what insights we have to adore or appreciate. And there are some people who make meetings like this, and they are very content with this place that they found, this realization that they have. In the group, they will sit there, and if there are no questions, then nothing will be said.
Shai, does this mean we get to ask a question?
Yeah.
Great. It's not the question you think I'm going to ask. And I'm slightly embarrassed to ask the question, but I'm doing it anyway because it was really relevant to that guidance of going to that place of awareness and that place of presence. And we talked in the meditation class about listening as love, and when I'm in the loving place of listening presence, I find that very easily a very beautiful place to be. There are other times though where like that place of peace and awareness feels like cold. It doesn't feel comforting to me. It it can feel empty, kind of without the labels and the personality and all these things. And why I'm embarrassed asking this question is that I perceive that it's like the right thing or the good thing on the spiritual path to like want to be stripping of these things. And sometimes I find that really easy and beautiful. And other times it can feel empty or cold. And so I guess
Yeah.
the question is kind of about like that. What do you make of that resistance, or how do you work with that resistance?
Well, we began the call by saying, the exploration is the discovery of this essential fact of your presence. Yeah. And in that essential fact, if that is what you are, being what you are, then what you said that sometimes going there, you said cold, it feels cold to me. So then the question is, what is this me that feels that this is cold? So there's still an objective perspective there looking at this rather than looking as this. That's a very interesting thing. So you say, what to do with this resistance? And so for you, you're assuming that the resistance is towards this perceived coldness or coolness. But I'd say the resistance is the thing that is perceiving it something other than itself. You see, there's this subtle duality there at play. Because if you go to that presence, what goes there? Does anything go anywhere? And if you're in that presence and then a voice says, it feels cold, it feels dull, it doesn't feel warm and alive or loving, then what is that voice that is other than that presence? Because that presence doesn't have a voice other than itself. So you see there's a secondary concept that comes into play. Does that make sense? You froze.
Just blew my mind what you said. The computer couldn't handle it.
But on a relative level, this is why, in a lot of meditation traditions and in the course we did last year and things like this, I bring in the smile, or bring it into the heart, or bring in the warmth, bring in this loving awareness, loving gaze, a loving listening. Because on one side, we can just say, what is that perceives it to be other than that? And then we look at that because we are subtly assuming ourselves once again to be something outside of that awareness, outside of that aware presence. But on the other side, on the relative side, we say yes, but take warmth with you, because sometimes for the body, mind, or the psychology, this perceived coldness or coolness or voidness or emptiness, if it starts to feel heavy or dark or dull, then we should back off a little bit. We should change the way that we look at it. And sometimes that is as simple as putting a smile in your eyes, or putting love in your heart, or putting that awareness in your heart. Like remember last week with listening as love, I mentioned that sometimes it can be very cerebral. Talking about awareness, listening, looking, it's like all up here. And what about all of the rest of it? And so there can be a cognizant sense of the soles of the feet. Ramana Maharshi would say to inquire into the nature of the eye in the heart center, not in the head, not in the mind, in the spiritual heart. And the spiritual heart is not the physical heart. And it's not in the center of the chest. He said it was on the right side of the chest. And when you do that, there's less of a cerebral quality to it. And that can be really helpful for some of us, especially who want to analyze figure it out, philosophize about it, to really think about it from all of the angles. Because the simple truth of the matter is that you can't analyze it, figure it out, philosophize about it, or put it into a thought, because it's not any of those things. Because the more that we conceptualize it, the more it just becomes an object rather than what you are. And so the only way to be what you are is to drop everything on top of it. And it's really helpful to also spend time, I say the word non-conceptual a lot. Concepts, non-conceptual looking, non-conceptual awareness. And it's really good to clarify a lot of the terminology and the words, not just to sit, not just to accept them and translate them in a mind, but what does that mean? What is a concept? If I'm sitting here and then I have a feeling that there is a coldness to this presence, this feeling of a coldness is a perceived concept. I've just attributed it to something from the past. I've attributed it to an idea. I've put a label on it. And now I feel a certain way about it. And now I identify with that feeling. And now that place is either positive or negative, or neutral. I either like it or I don't like it. I'm sure about it or I'm not sure about it. But if you collapse all of those concepts, then what is it? If you don't have any word to say about coldness, warmness, anything like that, then what is it? And so you go there free of any conceptualization, and you notice every time the mind tries to conceptualize it into something, how we move away from it. And then the task is you notice the concept, and you cancel the contract with the concept. And the way that I invite us to do that is to be simple-minded in those moments, to pretend like you've never heard a word in your life. That words or thoughts or concepts, they're as foreign a language as the song of birds. You can't translate it. If it's untranslatable, then what is that? So non-conceptual awareness, it's a prior to the feeling or sensation that something is cold or warm. And if it's helpful, don't let it be up here. Put it here and rest in there and do it. It's very helpful for all of us to feel an upliftment, an upward motion in this energy. Even though in that place there's not really an up or a down, a left or a right, an inside or an outside. But to find warmth there. Because also several of the traditions, they say that if you're understanding this, then it naturally breeds a compassionate quality to yourself and others, to the world. It naturally breeds a warmth to the world. And if it's bringing a coldness and an indifference or a superiority or an inferiority to other things in the world, then we should question it. The coldness can also be assigned to as a slight redirect. If it's like cold here, then what about here? What about here? What about here? Zoom in, zoom out, go to the left, go to the right, explore, inquire, and get behind the word coldness or warmth or positive or negative. Get behind that and rest in that. It reminds me of some terminology from the Buddhists. They say that it's not nihilism, and it's not eternalism. It's not nihilism, meaning that it's not devoid or purposelessness. It's not just all happening, so what's the point? No? It's not nihilism, and it's not eternalism. It's not that its existence is somehow separate and ongoing and infinite. And so if we turn away from these two extremes, then it's not turning towards anything other than just this simple fact here and now. In the Sanatana Dharma, in Hinduism and the traditions from India, they say it is Parabrahma and Paramatma. And Para means beyond. Brahma means the whole concept, the whole unity of the concept of creation, of the universe. It says utterly beyond that. And then Paramatma, the individual soul or spirit or identity, it's utterly beyond that as well. Because if we take no concept with us to this awareness, then who is there to say that it's this or that it's that extreme or that extreme, that it's left or right? I was listening to a talk some time ago. Another teacher who does meetings like this, and he said halfway through the meeting, or in the beginning of the meeting, somebody he just explained the basic nature of it, and then the guy said, "Oh, that's it?" And he says, "Yes." He says, "Ah," and then he stood up and he said, "Well, thank you very much," and he walked out. And then people were still walking in. The thing hadn't even started yet. They said, "Where is he going?" He said, "Well, he's got it. He doesn't need to be here anymore."
Well, then, I have a follow-up. So it's kind of related to, I think, an ongoing conversation that you have around kind of weaving all these different traditions that you work in. You know, the non-dual being the ground of it all, but, you know, in ceremony, we are doing things with the Santo Daime, we're singing to the Orishas, we're singing Christ and to Buddha, and for you, you really are seamlessly able to kind of connect with all of those forces and sing and pray really sincerely to them, while kind of always emphasizing to all of us that this non-dual, this presence is what undergirds it all. Mm-hmm. And so the question that's building off what I asked previously is that I think, like maybe many people, I find it really easy to pray to an Orisha, an elemental force of nature, and feel really comforted and uplifted by that because of the personal relationship with a deity or an elemental force. And I can almost make myself feel bad about that, because I'm like, well, I'm just like living in the world of illusion, and really I should just be comforted in this place of awareness. And so I can feel a tension between them in myself, and how I can relate to a deity or a force differently than I can to meditation sometimes. So how do you like experience it? Like, how do you reconcile it for yourself? Or are you just like totally at peace in the non-dual all the time? Always.
So the invitation here, it's to, and there's many invitations here, right? But it's to resolve who and what you are. No, it's not to realize anything big or significant or have any huge experience. No, there's no experience in what you are, because it's the experiencer. There's just that. And if we really get to that place and remove all the labels of the concepts, then what is that? No? And what is that presence? And if there's something that is unsatisfied with that looks to other things to lean on, then that's fine. But leaning on those things, they will fall over because they're outside of yourself. in the ultimate ground, it's not somewhere else. It's not somewhere other than here and now, and it's not something other than what you are. And so that's really the root of it. You go to the root, but then on the tree there's so many branches and there's so many leaves. We have what this is also referring to is like the ultimate truth, and you could say the ultimate truth is not outside of you. It's not other than what you are. From the non-dual traditional perspective, it's to say that reality is an indivisible whole. And that means that there is not a secondary independent entity that realizes that. There is just one thing that realizes that. That means all of the concepts and ideas that you have of yourself being outside of that, they don't fit into that. That's the ultimate level. Everything, boom, it's just this. It's just here. It's just now. There's nothing outside of it. There's nowhere else. That's one side. That's the ultimate. And then we say we also have the second truth, which is the relative. And the relative is that there is something that it feels like to be you. There is something that where you get your joy. There's something in your life that you have a unique perspective from that place. And you have a relative life and a relational life. And that life is connected and influenced by so many things and influences so many things. And the task is to hold two truths at the same time, the ultimate and the relative. Yeah? But I say the ultimate is the root, then you go there and it makes the relative look differently. That's what it is. Yeah? If you first find out who and what you are, then the relational world looks different. If we just say, well, that ultimate truth is good, but I don't know, it seems too far-fetched. It seems like I just don't get it. And I'm just going to work on the relative truth. We're looking at it from also a confused view inherently, because we're not seeing it from the clarity of the place of clarity. Yeah. So that's why I'm going back to the root, and then we come forward from there. When you say that it could be perhaps easier in your spiritual way of relating to these forces, these energies, and how easy it is to pray to that, to get into that, to feel the devotion of it. Why do we like that? It's because the concept of ourself then dissolves. If you are really in the song or in the prayer or in the call, the llamado, you kind of disappear. You become an instrument, and in that instrument, you're moving, you're channeling, you're becoming a medium for that force to move, and you're becoming hollow. And that's, if we go back to the root, that's the same hollowness. It's like many of us, we of course want to be happy. When we are truly happy, there's a sense of self-abandon in that. It's a carefree joy. You're not sitting there ruminating and analyzing the happiness. You're not even thinking about it. There's just pure joy there. And part of the joy of happiness is the absence of this secondary sense of self that grasps and interferes, and thinks that it's separate from that joy. When you're in real joy, that it's just joy. And so when you're in the song or the prayer or the call, there's just that. And so it's the same thing. And so this relational thing of enjoying that route, where does that come from? What are you in that? There's a place where I call it non-dual devotion. And for any of us who are familiar with these sorts of terms or practices or traditions, non-dual devotion, it sounds like a contradiction. Because one is to say that there is an indivisible reality and there's nothing outside of that, and that is what you are. So then devotion to what? Devotion implies duality. Devotion implies a separation. And this is I find it a really fun topic. Just as the same way we can hold two truths, from that place, From outside that place, things that look contradictory. From in that place, there's no conflict whatsoever. And so I've mentioned on here before my joy of the devotional traditions, and something that has been close to my life for many years. And the devotional traditions, it's what we could call bhakti. No, anyone not familiar with these terms? Bhakti is one of the main yogic paths, but bhakti is throughout several traditions. Bhakti is this sense of devotion, a sense of devotion that brings surrender. I like to call it the relational path, because it is not about reading a book, it's not about philosophy, it's not about intellectualization of learning a certain practice or learning a certain form of spirituality. It's about putting yourself in a dynamic surrender to that thing. No? It's finding something that is worthy of your surrender, finding something that is worthy of your trust. And so a lot of worship in all religions would be considered under the umbrella of bhakti. To sing, to dance, to pray, to make altars, to recite the mantras, to sing the names, to remind the sense of self that feels that it is separate of the bigger thing. It's like a wave praying to the ocean. And on one side you say, that's ridiculous. The wave is the ocean. Why does it need to pray to the ocean? It's because in its state and feeling of separation, all it does is long to be home with the ocean. It longs from that little self to be back to its big self. No? And I believe it was Rumi, he said that the longing for God is God. No? That which calls us to be devotional, to want to surrender ourselves, it's the same force. So if that little wave and the little sense of self is wanting to be devotional to these forces upon the sea, it's the same force. No? That desire, that one desire, or that one thing that we make important. So for the bhakta, they become kind of infatuated. No, for the bhakta, or the devotional person, they become kind of obsessed with this one thing. Yeah? And there are many, many, many stories of many, many saints who kind of from the outside seemed like mad people, mad men and mad women and mad persons of all sorts of nature, because they were just consistently tied to this one thing. Like you look at Francis of Assisi, he got kind of outcast from his town, and he went to go and live in the woods and build a church there, and everyone called him crazy because he'd just frolic in the woods and in this kind of state of unity with God. Because from one side of our societal perspective, we're trying to hold all of these things, we're trying to hold all of ourselves together. And then from the spiritual tradition, they're saying, let's pull it all apart and see what the essence is, see what it's made of. And sometimes that doesn't look so regular in society anymore. And so you have a lot of people who stumble into what I'm talking about with the umbrella of bhakti. They stumble into that. And I've met a lot of people as well in my work who were pretty strict and intellectual atheists, which I have no problem with. I think it's fascinating. It's wonderful, and then they've had experiences, like they've drunk a big cup of ayahuasca or done this or done that or had some experience, and they've become some of the most devotional people. They're not doing cold meditation. They're doing mantra repetition, or they are reading the mystics' poetry. And the mystics' poetry is full of love poems to God, It's like being in a relationship with the divine. Even though you might essentially know that there's no difference of you and the beloved, it's the very joy of falling in love over and over again. In Islam, or in Sufism, there's a saying that says, love, lover, and the beloved are all one. So there's a lot of paths that ask you to generate this side of devotion, to sort of get the fever of the saints, to try and come to their level. And so you're generating this love towards the biggest, most divine, the capital L love, the biggest thing that you can conceive of, the whole thing, the totality of it all, what you want to call God or pure presence or the universe or Brahma or Shiva, Krishna, whatever name you want to call it, and you generate all of this love for that, which in turn, like a shower, purifies the individual so that they can see that clearer, and they start losing themselves in it even more, and the wave becomes more and more like the ocean, more and more like the ocean. But you know that the wave was always the ocean. It's not becoming more like the ocean. It's not becoming more like love. It's purifying the thing that thought that it was separate. And so the thing that thinks it's separate is the real thing that we kind of question here. Yeah. So the love, lover, and beloved are all one. Very simply, we could say that it all comes from the same source. So you could look at all of the different streams, or you could go to the source. And to go to the source, you don't have to go anywhere outside of yourself. I always found it a pretty good format. I used to teach some Eastern philosophy, and in yoga teacher trainings particularly, and so that would usually pertain to the history and culture of yoga. So, and one of the things that I find a really nice, a helpful map for some of us, if you've never heard of it, but there's four main schools of yoga, four main branches of yoga, four main paths of yoga, you could say. And one is this bhakti yoga. It's the yoga of devotion. It's to surrender yourself to the beloved and purify the idea of separation in that continual surrender through acts of worship, of devotion, of chanting, singing, poetry, altars, tending the temple. And in this kind of celebration, you're kind of simple-minded because you don't need to be so high-browed to do that thing. You can just go and fall in love over and over and over and over again. And then the other main path is jnana, or jnana yoga. And jnana is more of the high-browed path, the high-minded path, you could say. It's a philosophical school of inquiry to investigate the nature and to pull apart the philosophies to come directly to the truth inside of you. And so it's reading scriptures, it's studying yourself, it's observing your mind, it's putting everything under a microscope and eloquently and elegantly coming to the understanding. The other two paths is karma yoga. Karma yoga is a yoga of service. One of the ways to come to the understanding of that non-dual realization is to apply yourself in service, to become like a saint, to just work, to feed the poor, to feed the hungry, to sweep, to clean, to put yourself in full acts of selfless service, to put yourself behind and go and do the right thing for the good of all, because it's the right thing to be done. And you just go and you just work tirelessly, and you go and help and help and help. And in that helping, you kind of forget, because you're not self-seeking. Now you're self-serving. You're in selfless service. And then the last path is Raj Yoga, royal yoga, or royal yoga, or Raja means king. And in that path, we have the practices of meditation and one-pointed concentration, leading to samadhi, to concentrate the mind and uplift the energy. So through certain refined practices, you can come to this understanding. Just to be able to look at that landscape, you have these different temperaments of different personalities and different things for different people, to be able to come to this place that we pointed out, I've been pointing out since the beginning of the call. One through falling in love, through surrender, through devotion. One through philosophy, through inquiry, through investigation. One through service, through kindness, through application, through action. And one through meditative practice and absorption. But they all come to the kind of same place. And so we don't say that one is more realized than the other or anything like this. But the reason why I go down this stream is because we're talking about devotion, and when we talk about devotion, I put it in this umbrella. And when in that umbrella of devotion or philosophical investigation or service, we don't even have to call it the yoga path or a path from here or a path from there, because these are found within all streams and with all practices, within all traditions. And so we have a sort of a temperament there. Ramana Maharshi was famous for, one of the things he did say, because it was it was a path of investigation that he put forth, of inquiry, to inquire into the nature of yourself and to study that and understand that and to come directly to that. But he also was a huge proponent for bhakti, you know? And that some people who want to intellectualize things, they'll say, well, that's just a simple-minded path, just to chant and sing and do these simple-minded things. But these people haven't read any of the books. They don't know any of the texts, any of the sutras, any of the scriptures. But he would say that a truly devotional person doesn't need any of those things, and that path is really the high path. And so that is to say that, again, if you want to understand this, you don't really need to figure it out so deeply. So in the beginning of the call, we said the fact of your presence right here and now, the very fact of your essential innate awareness that has been there your whole life. It was there before you thought about it. It was there before thought. It will be there after thought. It's even there while you're thinking. It's never not been there. And from that place, if we do feel, as you kind of brought up, Sam, a coldness or an indifference or a craving for the moving of larger forces, then I like the prescription of this kind of yoga of devotion. Since I really went off the deep end into these paths, and as a young adult, that was really where I started. And I don't know anything about poetry. I never studied poetry. I don't even know if I write poems, actually. But just writing these little ditties, writing these songs, these acts of devotion, what to put in one's mind if one looks at their mind so carefully and one stumbles upon something so great, then when we are thinking or ruminating, how beautiful is it if what comes out is poetry, what comes out is song, what comes out is glory to that thing that we found, and celebration to the thing in all the different traditions. When I see it in Brazil, I say, wow, how beautiful. It's one of the things that lights me up the most about all of these traditions. It is the inner essence and spirit of bhakti. When I see people who are alive, who are celebrating in devotion, I say, yeah, that's for me. I'm there. I was with one of my teachers in February in Oregon, and I was just considering how wonderful it is to be near people of faith. Not necessarily to follow faith or even what they have faith in, but to be near people who have such conviction about their spiritual discoveries, such conviction that they are kind of unshakable personalities, and you feel the vibration from their heart, you feel the vibration from their mind, what comes out of their eyes, what comes out of their mouth. Because now we're talking about characters and people and personalities and human beings that have, they're not, just stumbling around in the dark. They found a light and they say, this is my pillar, this is my staff and rod, this is my rock. And on that rock you will build my church, type of thing. There's a very strong testament in somebody's faith, no matter what the tradition is. And when I'm near somebody of faith, when I'm near people of faith, when I'm in traditions or ceremonies or these groups, to feel the quality of devotion that arises of somebody celebrating through their being and through their vehicle and through their instrument is one of the most beautiful things. Yeah, for me, I want to just continue with what you said, Sam, and I'd say that it would be such a sad thing if we all just sat there very cold and dead and said, "Ah, beautiful, how profound my presence." No? So there is a kind of a spontaneous celebration and offering of oneself that is continually going over and over and over and over. I've said it on here before, but one of my favorite poems by Hafez, he says, you've heard me say it before. Now, what is the difference between you and a saint? Well, my friend, the saint knows that this life is a wonderful game of chess with the beloved. And now that saint, he keeps tripping over in hysterics, laughing, saying, I surrender, I surrender. Whereas you, my dear, I'm afraid you still believe you have 1,000 serious moves to make. James, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello,
Hi.
Jaya. Unfortunately, my camera isn't operating today.
Okay. Well, I just saw your name there. Last time I spoke to you, you were sharing to me just what we're sharing tonight, no? This presence. And you said since you found it, you would take long daily walks along the beach, just enjoying that simple fact. So I just saw your name, and I thought I would ask you to. I get tired of hearing my own voice, you know. I wonder if you have anything to say or to speak from that place of this that you were describing to me. Would you feel comfortable doing that?
Very much so, Jaya. Yeah. I've found in the last 2 years, my appreciation for things around me has increased
Mm,
exponentially. I can go down to the beach and I look at the clouds on the horizon, and an hour can pass and it's just gone. And the clouds are so beautiful, which I just didn't have the appreciation in the past of the beauty around me and the serenity and the everything is a wonderful picture,
mm,
as opposed to I found that when we're in a hurry, I go through life and I see nothing. But
mm,
once you have the chance to sit back and to take it in, you perhaps see the same thing, which is nothing, but you see everything. And the absorption of beauty and nature, I'm very fortunate that I live on an island off the coast, which isn't in the city. It isn't in the express um, hectic pace that so many other people have to live in.
mm,
And the beauty that I've been given in the last, as I say, it's only happened to me since I've found faith and I've found presence and I've found the beauty of not trying to mar things with other outside influences, that I get to appreciate what I have been given.
mm.
And it's an absolutely beautiful experience. It really is. I'm sorry if I haven't expressed myself correctly, but to me, I feel blessed and honored to be able to absorb everything around me.
Yeah, it's beautiful, James. So it's like the looking has returned to the looking, and then everything you see from that place, it has a different aliveness to it, no?
it's far more simplistic than I used to. I was, I suppose, a little bit more complicated,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried to solve far too many problems in life where the problems solve themselves now. They come and they go, and the natural flow and the ebb of problems relates it not to be any problem. Like with my family, I can get to relate to them and to talk to them in a far more meaningful way now because I listen rather than trying to communicate every space. It just isn't necessary to have to fill in every space I've found, which
Mm.
is completely uplifting.
Mm. It's interesting, this need not to fill up the space gives us the space to appreciate the space.
Very much. And the space is what gives us the answers I've found.
Mm.
And the answer is there probably is no answer. You just need to be and to be happy with the things around you. And I just, as I say, I feel so blessed that I have the clarity now to understand that it isn't all about solving problems, it's about facing them. And to face them, you need to have presence and clarity in your own body to be able to even understand that for me, they aren't actually problems, they are just questions. And questions, sometimes they don't have to be answered. Sometimes they're allowed to sit.
Mm.
I hope I've contributed something, Jaya,
There's nothing you need to
because you
contribute.
contribute so much. You contribute so much to all of our lives just to be able to have the ability to communicate with such wonderful, like-minded individuals who I have met very few of them, but I feel very, very much in the family. And the family is a wonderful thing to be in.
Mm. Yeah, it's wonderful to have you, James. And so every time I see you, I can see this light and this wisdom behind your eyes. And I see you on every single call, and I'm so honored always to have you. And yeah, as I said before, I get tired of my own voice. I think also just to continue with what we are doing here, it's when I open the space for questions or reflections, it's really, it's not about saying the right thing. It's not about asking the right thing. It's about seeing how it is to convey from this place, to inquire into this place, to look from this place. This is the very reason why pretty much every single one of these calls for the last year, I'll come on and I'll have no idea what we are going to talk about. That's not just because I'm, good at freestyling or I'm risky. It's because the point of it is to convey from this place so that we can be from this place, so that we can experiment living and talking and being together from this place. Because if we just were in this place here and I say some nice things and you say, wow, that was so beautiful, I did the meditation, and then I go back to my life, what is that for you? What are you taking? And so James says, forgive me if I didn't use the right terminology. There is no right terminology, no? We all have our own way of speaking about this, and sometimes one of the best ways of investigation into our innate presence of awareness is to describe it. So James just described what it was like, what he was seeing. There's nothing more beautiful than that. I thank you so much, James, for that. So does anybody else want to join in on our call? You're very welcome. So Ryan, I'm looking at you. Are you okay to talk right now? I know you're meditating.
Yeah. Um, I don't mind. Um, wow. Wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I'm just kind of touched by this conversation and just following up on um, what he just said about, being out and walking and, an hour can go by just like that, and being surrounded um, by beauty and being witness to it. Just recently for me, I sort of, I have two dogs and I've been walking them for years. And it's generally been this thing where, I'm pulling them along. I got to get this walk taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much just like knocking a chore off, checking a chore off my list. And I recently read that uh, a 30-minute walk where you let your dogs sniff and stop where they want without disruption is much more impactful for them than a 30-minute walk of just straight exercise pulling them along. And so I decided to start doing that. And in doing that, I found myself standing, at random spots through my neighborhood, um, and just being completely blown away by all the beauty that I'm surrounded by. Um, whether it be the massive trees here in Portland, Oregon, the landscaping, something really beautiful about a home. And I found it kind of shocking that, I've been walking these blocks for I've lived here for, 8 or 9 years now, and I've never noticed how stunningly beautiful it is block by block. And I'm just like, wow, like just feel really blessed to be surrounded by the neighbors that I have. Um, and the work that they put into their home, and how that um, is just sitting there for me to observe and be present with as my dogs are sniffing or doing whatever they're doing. And in doing that, each time I stop, I reflect on the kind of neighbor that I am and how I show up. And um, I really thought long and hard about the fact that I want to be a better neighbor, and that in walking with my head down, trying to get my dogs taken care of, um, maybe didn't appear as approachable or make an attempt to connect with people as I'm passing by. And so, in reflecting on that, I just found that I just like was longing to be a better neighbor. And I wasn't even sure like how that would show up, or specifically what that meant in the moment. But since I had that thought, I've been much more intentional because I'm walking through the neighborhoods really slow, stopping. Um, I've made more of an attempt to just connect with anybody that I see, and sort of make eye contact until I notice they notice me. And whether it's a simple hello, a smile, or a conversation, my perspective on all that has completely changed. I thought um, everybody seemed really busy. Everybody has a lot going on, but what I realized in slowing down, it was me, was the one who was busy walking with my head down. And in making that shift, I've started to connect with people all throughout my neighborhood, and it's felt really special. And it's just such a small gesture, but to connect with people in that way, and to show up in the neighborhood, and to be approachable, and to connect with people has really changed a lot for me. And I make it a point now every time I go out to try to connect with somebody close by. Just it feels like there's a lot going on in the world right now. It's a pretty crazy time, and I think just one small interaction like that can make a huge difference. And I'm seeing people that I felt like were not very friendly, or they didn't seem talkative. um, in a different way, in a completely different way now. And like I said, it turns out it was me,
Mm.
who was showing up that way. And to flip that and show up like that in my neighborhood, I'm seeing the people that I thought weren't as friendly or approachable, um, smiling these huge smiles back at me. Or, one neighbor asking me about my son who just graduated. We have a sign on the front yard. He graduated from high school, and she stopped and talked to me about him and congratulated me. And I'm just like, it was, yeah, just a really, and I don't know if I want to call it an experiment or just an amazing shift in how I show up every day and show up for my neighbors and just show up in the world. And
Mm.
a couple of years ago, my aunt said to me, it was just random. I can't remember what she was talking about, but she was talking about a new neighbor. And she would just kept reiterating, you have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. And it didn't really resonate with me at the time. Um, but since I've made that shift, I keep going back to that comment and really realizing how important it is to show up as a really good neighbor and show out for people. And if that's just a simple smile or wave, or stopping and chatting about just life in general, it makes a difference. Um, and so um,
Mm.
it feels really special when I take my dogs. I call it the dog. The dogs are walking me now because I'm just letting them do their thing and I follow their lead. So um, it's really changed what it feels like out there for me right now. And to be present in those moments, I'm just like, holy cow, I'm surrounded by so much beauty right now. And um, that's not something I really experienced, for years and years. And
Yeah.
so it feels really special now when I walk out there to be present and be connected to the people in my neighborhood. And
Mm.
I just feel really, really lucky that it's like I'm able to show up with that mindset now. It feels like a blessing to
Yeah.
have that experience just on a very simple walk with my dogs.
That's marvelous. I'm so glad I called on you. Uh,
Mhm.
you let the dogs walk you now.
Yes.
That you say a shift, this shift. That's a huge shift. Now you're not walking the dogs. uh,
Yes.
um, my dog passed away a few years ago, but I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes if you go to get somewhere and he wants to sniff everything, I remember Haley would always pull him by the neck, and I'd stop and wait for him to finish smelling because I was like, well, he's doing his thing. I'm not going to interrupt. Um, and sometimes just like that, walking and letting him tell you where you're going, and he doesn't. He's just following his nose. But it's nice to be open to the possibility. It's like you're available. If you're walking through and the flower is beautiful by itself. It doesn't need you to call it beautiful. It doesn't even know that it's beautiful. It's just there doing its thing, and it has a fragrance. But if we're not available, then we don't even realize how the beauty of the flower. We don't even realize the fragrance. So you see the availability of life when you become available, don't you? It's fascinating. So what we are also talking about with this, it starts with this basic presence of awareness and really getting curious. What is that? Where is that? How is that? Is that what I am? I am that. What does it look like from here? What does it sound like from here? And the more times you go back into that stream, it can, for some, it can happen suddenly, and it's very, very big and very a big shift. For others, it's gradually and slowly, slowly, slowly. You just start seeing more and more changes, more clarity appearing through the screen. But from that place of that actual presence that we're talking about, there's no shift at all. There's no sudden, there's no gradual. It's actually just always been there, and it's always been available. And so we're one thing, looking at that open availability of who and what we are, And then the other side of it, we're looking at the contraction and all of the things that say we're not that and take us away from that. Because we know what it's like to rest in peace. And so the question is always, why do we keep running away from it? Why do we keep doing all these other things? And rather than entertaining all of this other stuff and A, B, and C and all of this, I'm saying just go back. Put a full stop there. Make the stop very, very full. You'll find that the stop is full in the full stop. And you'll find that the flower is full in its availability. You'll find that the moment is full in its aliveness. You'll find that presence, it's always been there. And so I really like what you shared, Ryan. It puts it just right there in the world, right there on the street, right there in the very ordinary fact of life. There's some comments for you in the chat.
I'll share something with you, Jar.
Yes, who's that?
Jennifer.
Oh, hey, Jennifer.
Hello, I can't get my video to work tonight for some reason.
Okay.
Earlier when you were talking about atheists and bhakti.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just it's relevant. I've struggled with finding a sense of spiritual community because it took me a very long time to even identify as being a spiritual person. And it's been quite a journey and a transformation, but it gets lonely because it doesn't fit inside a box. So it's not as easy as like people who have been devoted to a particular faith that go out and can go to a church and find a community. And so it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily something that I was looking for when I began attending ceremony, but it was something that I found and then became more hungry for. And, I have these amazing experiences at ceremony, and it took me a while to like realize what exactly that was, and it was that sense of community. And so like I would come back and I would try to cultivate that sense for myself, but like I couldn't really find anywhere where I would fit in, or I told myself that anyway. And like 2 weeks ago, I decided to go to Krishna festival, the Festival of Joy. I think it's called the Jagannath Ratha Yantra. Sorry, I don't really know what I'm talking about.
It's okay.
But I went to this ISKCON festival. I liked the name in itself, and like they had a lot of things that they were offering that day that really resonated. And I went, and like I was telling myself that like I didn't belong there. But like even though it was fun and beautiful and everyone was so happy, I mean it was the Festival of Joy, that I didn't belong there because I'm not because I don't go to their temple, that I'm not of their faith. And I had this really amazing experience that was so inclusive, like beyond my imagination. And there was this older gentleman that had just been chatting me up, and but he called himself Bhakta John. And I mean, it's like an old school guy that had been part of the temple for a long, long time. And he saw me watching everyone in the procession. They were pulling the chariot. And he's like, go and grab the ropes. Like, go grab the ropes, get in there with them. And I'm like, no. And he's like, no, get in there. And encouraged me to get in there and pulled this chariot with all of the people in this joyous celebration. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And at one point, I just got so overwhelmed that I started weeping, and I couldn't really understand like what it was that was making me like overcoming what exactly it was, but it was the inclusion that I had hyped this thing up in my head that I didn't belong into this group, or that I couldn't celebrate or worship the way that I did, that it had to be a certain way. And it was just this like very revelatory experience. The community is everywhere, and but it's all that I doesn't, they didn't care that I don't belong to their temple. It didn't matter. It was for everybody. So I found that interesting, and I don't, I'm having interesting experiences with bhakti that I can't really explain, but I resonate with what you said of like, there's a joy, and it doesn't necessarily make sense in my head, but it makes sense in my heart.
Yeah. A senseless joy. Yeah. And if that's enough, a senseless joy, no? If something tries to always make sense about everything and it makes us miserable, then maybe I don't want to make sense out of it in that way. But what to look at, Jennifer, it's the again, there's an idea or a concept that came into play there that didn't feel like it belonged, or felt like an outsider or an other or something foreign, no? And that's a very, very old voice. You know that voice. You know that part of yourself that doesn't feel like they don't belong. You could probably tell me several stories about that voice, all through your life, in your teen years and your childhood. Like, you know that feeling. And that feeling, so if you don't necessarily need to know, all of the situations where it comes up, but that feeling, it's kind of like a veil, like a curtain. Like when it comes over, it's like this protective mechanism. No? It keeps you here, and it keeps the world out there, and it keeps you safe from that, or it keeps you separate from that, and it keeps you from feeling that thing. And so this time you removed the curtain and you went and pulled the robe, and all of a sudden you were weeping. You didn't say you were crying, you said you were weeping. Weeping indicates it's not just emotion, like there's something actually moving in me. I really make a distinction with weeping and crying. And so as soon as you move that veil, there's more feeling. There's something you're participating in, and this community or this inclusion. Just like Ryan was sharing something. In my words, to paraphrase, it's not until we're available to the thing that we notice the thing was available to us. Like the neighbors weren't cold. He said it was me. When I changed my attitude, they were smiling at me. What's going on? There's this kind of inside job that when I change what the where I'm looking to inside of myself, or where I'm looking from, or what I'm choosing to believe or follow or feel, the world responds differently. And so if we're responding from this idea that I don't belong, that has a certain story, and you could have stayed in that until somebody pulled you out of it and said, go and grab the rope. And so they gave you a lifeline. Isn't that fascinating? And so in the same way, walking down the street, seeing the flower, seeing the procession, seeing the clouds, it's like every single moment is the rope. You don't have to pull anything with it. You don't have to untie it. You don't have to play tug of war with it. You don't have to pull the caravan. But there's a rope being given to you every moment. Every single moment. There's not one moment that has ever gone by in your entire life that has not been full of presence, waiting for you to receive it, waiting for you to return to it, waiting for you to remember it. And Jennifer, I liked what you said. You were sort of describing a discovery of being a spiritual person. You don't even have to call it that. No, I'm always rebelling against terminologies and also wanting to define things, to get clear on things. And I said in the call last week, it's not really about there being a spiritual thing and an unspiritual thing. When I use the term spirituality, I mean the whole thing. There's nothing left out of that thing. And so you said it actually yourself. You said, because you can't put it into a box. So everyone's putting these things into boxes. Now I don't fit into a box because now this thing that I've found, it doesn't fit into a box. What is this thing that we found that doesn't fit into a box? Yeah. And you know, footnote: the Hare Krishnas definitely don't mind. No, they're always happy to receive you and to feed you. When I was before I was married with children, I was wandering around the world barefoot with just a backpack and no direction in hand, and everywhere I'd go, every country or city, I would always know that if I found a Sikh temple or a Hare Krishna temple, I would be fed and looked after, and so it's nice to, like I said earlier, to come by people of faith and to even come with your suspicion, even come with your a critical eye and say, are they truly happy? Is their mind truly at peace? Are they truly at peace with their mind? Do they sleep well at night? Are they kind to each other? You can come and scrutinize all you want, but if you surround someone with genuine faith, or people celebrating this, or in a spiritual path, or on a spiritual path, or have actually found something valuable, you'll find that part that wants to scrutinize and wants to criticize, it gets very, very quiet. And that's that place of appreciating the flower, appreciating the availability of the flower. Now, and like you said, that's the thing. Is like something awakens, and then you sort of, I want more of that. You know, it's like you start to, the ship starts to turn into the direction of the sunlight, and then things get more and more luminous, more and more clear. But it doesn't begin with any of the things, or whatever it seems. You know? So the world is not how it seems, and you are not what you think you are. And so it doesn't begin any of if you think that this clarity or this understanding comes from the outside, or comes from a book, or comes from an experience, or comes from a teacher, or comes from a tradition, or comes from this way or that way, you'll forever be looking in the wrong way, because the only place that it comes, the only place that it emerges and arises is in you, because it is what you are. And so we end where we began, coming back to that place of what you fundamentally are. It's not a trick question. Sometimes the mind says, this is a trick question, I've got to figure it out, I've got to try to make the key fit the hole in just the right way, and then I'll understand what he's talking about. But you know that it's not a trick question. So my friends, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you for a lovely conversation. Thank you for those who shared and asked questions. Really wonderful to have the opportunity to spend some quality time smelling the flowers with you all. We have, you know about the things coming up that you want to know about. Actually, tomorrow I should I'm not even sure which groups to use. I need to ask Paula where to put things. I don't know how people find out about anything on the Forest Path. They say 7 o'clock on Tuesday. I'm like, okay. But if you are interested, and if you are in Europe or in Northern America, like in those time zones, tomorrow at 11 a.m. if you're available, I'm having a conversation. I'm having a call with a wonderful spiritual teacher named Billy Doyle. He's going to come and contribute to the course that we've been doing on the yoga of deep listening, and he's going to talk a little bit, probably just like I did tonight, from this place to bring it back to this place, and talk a little bit about non-dual listening, and how we can do that from an embodied presence, utilizing the body and utilizing the lineage that he comes from of Kashmir Shaivism, the yoga of Kashmir Shaivism from John Klein. I'll put a link somewhere, and I hope you find it if you're available at that time. Otherwise, we'll try to put a video out when it's done. But that's all my announcements. We're traveling next week, and wish us well. I will wish you well, and all will be well. Good night. Ciao.